So I'm going to ask an unusual one, given that answer. What's the first face that comes to mind when you think punchable?
Punchable? Oh my gosh. Well, I had an interesting meeting with President Obama. It was actually interesting. I was invited by Mark Benioff to come. It was for, 15 of the billionaires there in Silicon Valley. I was in San Jose, and it was for the president. It was before the second election, his re-election. And I voted for the president, so I've been a fan of the president. But I was getting more and more frustrated by watching the style of politics, which was, creating greater and greater division. And there seemed to me a great level of inaccuracy in the promises that are being made that very hard not to see. And at that time, it was the whole thing, we're going to raise taxes on the rich, and that's going to balance the budget. And I've done the numbers. I did a whole video on it. It shows you can kill every rich person in the United States and take all their money and take all the corporations and all the advertising from the Super Bowl. I do this whole long gig that came from some statistics another man put together for me, but I did it together, and you can't cover the budget for 1 year, and then what do you do next year, right? And so I said to Mark, I said, listen, I support the president, but I said, honestly, I don't know I can support the other side, but I don't know that I'm a guy to be there. I don't know that I'm a fan. And I said, Mark, you and I are so aligned in so much, but the way in which, how Simpson Bowles was this close and he let it pass. We had both sides willing to make some tough decisions is beyond me. That it lacks the leadership that fundamentally the President of the United States, in my mind, has to have. That's my judgment. I'm just a person. But it's like, I don't understand. Taking the easy route is not something that's going to sustain or grow this economy long term. And I said, and using the political capital, even though I'm supportive of health care, using that health care where half the country is upset about it and pushing it down their throat and trying to say it's going to cost less money. It's just like there's certain things. So Mark says, I agree with you. And Mark is the second largest fundraiser for the president. So I said, well, then how the hell do you raise all the money? He goes, well, because I feel stronger about him than the other guy. Yeah. And he said, and you and I are aligned with him on so many other things about, the environment and, people's right to marriage regardless of their sexual preference. And I said, of course we are. So he said, come and be there. I said, you know me, I'm totally respectful, but I'm honest. He goes, come. He said, I'll sit you right next to the president. He said, and we'll have a great conversation. So I went to this meeting, and it was crazy. I've worked with so many presidents over the years, but I'd not been with Obama. And it's downtown San Jose. They locked everybody in their buildings. And literally, it looked like one of those movies, when everybody's died and there's nothing left but the buildings. It was the wildest thing for several blocks. Took us up in this room. There's nobody else seeing. There's these 16 people, many of which from Silicon Valley. And I listened, and the president came in and was really wonderful, and he shared, some comments and said, I'm not here to give a speech. I'm here. You guys have built the biggest companies in the world. I'm thinking, not me. I don't fit that category. And so I wasn't going to say anything. And he said, but I really want to hear from you guys. So Mark turns to him and says, well, are you ready for some, real give and take, Mr. President? He said, yeah. And he goes, okay. Who wants to go first? And he points straight at me.
That's what friends are for.
So I said, Mr. President, I've paused. I literally paused. I thought, I shouldn't do this. I'm not here. They've all paid $250,000 to be here. And I actually have never done this before. I went 1,001, 1,000, trying to see if somebody else is going to say something. 1,003. I finally said, okay. So, well, Mr. President, I said, I want you to know I voted for you. I know you're a man of tremendous integrity. I share the same values you do, I believe. But I said, I'm really confused about two things. Number one, how you think you'll be able to have a second 4-year run and get anything done when you have taken the other side and demonized them to a point that they're never going to work with you. And my second question, if I ever get one, would be, why didn't you support Simpson Bowles? Right? I said, it was right there. It needed to be done. And he's long paused, and he said, well, those are fair questions. And he said, first of all, I don't think I've ever demonized the other party ever. And I just sat there, and I watched him say it. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not a Republican, but come on. Yeah. Right? Both sides have demonized. Are you kidding? And he goes, and they've been really unfair to me. And he went through this piece. And I said, Mr. President, that's happened with every president, to be fair. That's what they both do. And it's gotten worse throughout the years for sure. I said, but what about Simpson Bowles? And he said, well, Tony, and everybody does a research about who's in the room, the president knew. And he goes, well, Tony, your friends, your hedge fund friends, he said, they wouldn't like it if we got rid of, the 15%, tax they do. And they wouldn't, and he goes, and, most Americans wouldn't like it if they got rid of their mortgage deduction and, all those things. And he said, I got a better plan. And I said, the better plan is you're going to raise taxes back to Bush on the wealthy. And I said, it takes $4 billion a day to run this country. And you know as well as I do, the estimates of all that money in won't even cover 3 months of this government spending, so it won't solve anything. You're going to have to raise taxes on everyone to cover this. And I said, so how do you deal with that? And so he and I went back and forth. And to be fair, I'm telling my version of the story. I'm sure he'd give you a different version of the story. But there was a point where I felt I'm losing rapport with every person in this room. But I had to be honest. And finally, at one point, the Secret Serviceman came over and grabbed my wrist. He said, I think that's enough. And to the president's, didn't raise my voice. The president's, to honor him, he said, no, Tony's created some creative tension here. And he said, I'm not used to that in these rooms, but he said, it's a fair question. I said, Mr. President, I just want to know because I voted for you, and there are a lot of people I know that voted for you. I don't know if they will again. I don't know if they need to. You're going to win anyway. Yeah. But I'd really love to know what to tell them about how you're going to govern with this level of division. And so at the end, I just said, well, thank you for your time. And then everybody else got up and asked questions like, will you give a shout to the Jews and things like that. There was no hardballs in there at all, but it's a political environment. So afterwards I thought, oh my God, everybody's going to hate me. And then Reid Hoffman walks up to me, from LinkedIn and says, I can't believe you asked him that question. He goes, I can't believe you asked him that. He said, I've been wanting to ask him that question forever. He goes, said, that was good on you. And I go, there's people coming up to me, give me enthusiasm. And then the president came around, and when he came back around, he went to shake everybody's hand, shakes my hand. I shook his hand, and I grabbed him with both hands, and I pulled him close to me. I said, Mr. President, I said, I'm not some stupid Republican who's just looking for some tax break. I said, this week I fed 250,000 people in San Jose. I don't live here. I came here to do an event. This is what I do wherever I go. I came from nothing, and I don't forget where I've come from. I care as much as you care. But I said, I'm really concerned about your ability to get your agenda done in the next season of your career if you don't find a way to bridge your communication style with these people. Intelligence is not enough. You've got to build relationship. And he stared at me, and he said, how about you, we're into my chief of staff, and you come visit me in the White House, you and I one-on-one for an hour. And I was like blown away. I thought, I didn't reach him at all. It was mind-boggling. So Mark was right there. He goes, that was unbelievable. That was incredible. I love that. Mark loved it. I love seeing that energy back and forth. You can really help him. So then about a week later, they were getting ready for these debates, and the other side called me and asked me if I would work with their particular candidate privately. And I'm not one side of the aisle. I want to see a debate that's real. So I worked with Mr. Romney, and that's the first debate they went in, and he did pretty well. And my invitation was no longer extended. So I wouldn't say punch in the mouth, but I'd say frustrated because here's a man who has such integrity, the President of the United States, and I think a classic human being who cares deeply, smart as a whip. But it's, the failure to find a way to bridge compromise is both sides' responsibility. But in my mind, as a citizen, I think the President of the United States has got to make that happen. And their presidents have done that and presidents that haven't. And I think it's not his fault. But we're at an impasse politically that is not allowing us to do the things that I think are necessary for our, put our house in order in this country. And easy for an outsider to see it, but as a citizen, we all have a right to opinion. So I don't know if it's thing punch, but I'd say shake him.
Metaphorically, yeah, right?
That might be a better one.
Wow, that's a hell of a story.